Episode number 371, Infiltrating the Aja State. Kane's face was pale from the mental exhaustion, but he had no time to rest, as there was still much to do. However, before continuing with Oshus, he turned to the side.
How is the woman?
Kane asked as he focused on the wooden cocoon, holding the young member of the Aja royal family.
She is unconscious. My branches are releasing a powerful drug that will erase her short-term memory, ensuring our presence and this event are forgotten.
Crane had protected the woman not out of kindness, but because it would have been difficult to explain how Samira perished fighting wave beasts while under the surveillance of a wave king.
Good, bring her to me.
Discover stories at Freeweb Novel. Kane walked over as the cocoon opened, revealing the unconscious Samira. His ego wave acted again, invading the young woman's mind and putting her into a state of compulsion as he altered her memories. Having become a saint hypnosis master, Kane did not need to use verbal commands to affect someone, and it was not difficult to manipulate memories in people whose willpower had yet to reach the wave champion level.
She will not cause us problems. Now let's finish with the old man.
Kane was tired but did not let that stop him as he took one of the blood nails and made a deep cut in Oshus' head. Crane looked on, his eyes widening as he witnessed Kane's actions, and he could not help but regard the young man as a true monster. He had lived in the underworld for a very long time, but Kane's behavior truly shocked him at times. Although Kane had a strong sense of justice, when it came to evil people, he showed no moral or ethical restraint whatsoever. A few hours later, as the sun was setting, Oshus and Samira calmly made their way back to the Azure estate.
It's not fair. I was having such a good time, yet we already need to return home.
The young girl exclaimed as she pouted, her cheeks puffing.
Ha, Samira, it is safer this way, or your parents might grow worried. But master, with you by my side, nothing can harm me, so I don't understand why we can't spend the night in the forest training.
Oshus smiled, but a devious light appeared in his eyes at the young woman's words.
If it's fine with you next time, we could spend the entire night training. Of course, we must ask your parents, but I am sure they will accept. Really, yes, master, that would make me very happy.
Samira nearly jumped with excitement at those words. Clearly, the young woman did not truly understand what was going on or the kind of man her master was. The duo entered the Azure estate without issue and made their way to a large mountain at the city's core, where a massive castle lay. Not all members of the Azure royal family lived in the Azure castle, with many having residences around it, such as Samira's family.
I will be going, we'll see each other soon.
Oshus spoke to the young girl with a smile as he walked toward the castle.
Already, see you soon, master.
Samira was a little surprised since her master would always chat with her for a while once they returned to the Azure estate, but she did not overthink it and went back to her house. Not everyone could enter the Azure castle, but as a wave king, Oshus had no trouble. He immediately went to a remote corner before knocking on a door.
Alderman Timothy. Come in.
A voice came from the other side, and Oshus entered the small room where a man stood among a set of thick books. The presence of books was an anomaly in the Godslayer humankind empire, since every child had an AI chip implanted from birth, capable of storing a near-endless amount of information. However, books could not be hacked, an important quality if the information they contained was sensitive.
What brings you here, Oshus?
Alderman Timothy looked much older than Oshus, but was actually hundreds of years younger. The reason for his appearance was that he was just a peak wave champion and had failed to reach the wave king rank. There was a bored expression on the alderman as he looked at Oshus. There was a lot of work to be done, but while his job granted him a certain status, it was not wise to ignore a wave king, so he paid the man attention. Oshus could see the disinterest in Timothy, but while he might have made a fuss any other time, now he adopted a solemn expression.
I need your assistance in a matter that requires a certain finesse.
Timothy's eyes narrowed as he heard those words, and he waved his hand, activating a formation in the room that sealed sound and ensured that no ego waves could eavesdrop. He was accustomed to this type of conversation, so after making sure they were alone, he nodded to Oshus, signaling he could continue.
It has come to my possession certain items that I cannot use right now, but it would be unwise to keep them on me since they could be tracked. I need a place where I can stash them for now.
Osha's face was calm, but there was no hiding the sense of trepidation in his eyes. Timothy focused on the Wave King for a moment, analyzing his words. If it were a simple treasure gained by luck, there was no problem keeping it in your space ring. But if it was stolen, the rightful owner could be searching for it through all sorts of supernatural means.
Even if you took it from other noble families, you could hide it in the main vault. It doesn't matter if they track it to this place, since they would not dare to fight with us for it.
Although Timothy's answer was arrogant, it was also correct, as the number of noble families that could offend the Azure royal family was very few. Oshus looked at Timothy briefly before clenching his teeth and waving his hand, revealing a small crystal glowing with sky blue energy.
A gold soul crystal.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 372, Trap I. When Timothy saw the gold soul crystal, not only was there shock in his eyes, but also a sense of profound greed. These treasures could purify your wave, solidifying your foundations, exactly what someone needed to move from the peak of a rank to the next stage. As he grew older, Timothy had sought many treasures that could help him improve his cultivation, but none of them had been able to forcefully push him to the Wave King rank. He was aware of the miracles that were the personal treasures of the Gold Soul Imperial family, but while he wanted to get them, they were beyond his reach.
Where did you get it?
Timothy demanded. Oshus' eyes grew cold at the question, and he waved his hand, making the gold soul crystal return to his space ring. Timothy nearly jumped out of his seat when he saw the sky blue crystal vanish, but he managed to get a hold of himself and took a deep breath before calming his heart.
I am sorry for that question. I know better than to ask someone to divulge their secrets. It's just that you showed me something very appealing. No problem.
Oshus softly nodded as he stared at the old wave champion for a long time before speaking again.
I need your help to store them, since if the Imperial Court were to discover I have them, I would get into serious trouble. Of course, I will pay you for it. I currently have 300 Warrior Gold Soul crystals, 25 Champion Gold Soul crystals, and 4 King Gold Soul crystals.
Timothy's eyes widened as he heard the words from Oshus, since that amount of wealth was shocking beyond belief, at least for him. Although the greed in his heart was burning, the alderman did not lose focus and could keep a cool head. That was one of the reasons he had secured a position on the Azure Royal Council despite his weak cultivation.
I am flattered that you sought my assistance, Oshus, but I must ask, why me? There are many others with a higher profile and means that could help you.
Oshus stared at Timothy for a moment before showing a small smile and nodding.
Simple, you are weak.
Timothy's eyes narrowed at that answer, but he did not speak, knowing it wasn't the end.
Had I gone to anyone else, they would have taken the gold soul crystals for themselves, or, in the best case, allowed me to keep a small fraction. But you cannot push me around.
Timothy stared at Oshus for a long time before finally nodding and smiling.
You are right, I have the means to help you, but not the strength to push you around.
The alderman paused at that point as he thought for a moment, before finally coming up with an answer.
There is a place that is safe enough that even Apotheosis Realm Masters use it to hide their stolen wealth. It is not easy to access, but as an alderman of the Azure Council, I have the required authorization. Great.
Oshus smiled as he heard that answer, since it meant that Timothy could help him, and there was no need to involve someone else.
Now about my payment.
Oshus' smile immediately faded as he heard that, and an annoyed expression appeared.
Yes, I will give you 10 million military credits and 1 champion gold soul crystal. Please, Oshus, you offend me. Let's forget about the military credits since I have no real use for them. What I want are 10 of the champion gold soul crystals. What 10, are you mad?
Oshus immediately shouted, and a flash of killing intent appeared in his eyes, making it seem as if he was ready to take Timothy's life. Although the threat of a Wave King was significant, Timothy had lived a long life and knew how to maneuver through challenging scenarios.
Please do not lose control. I want 10, but that doesn't mean I will get 10. We are just negotiating.
Oshus' killing intent calmed as he heard those words, and he stared at Timothy for a moment before speaking again.
25 million military credits and 2 champion gold soul crystals. 8 champion gold soul crystals, and I will give you 20 million military credits.
The duo carried on with their negotiation for nearly half an hour before they finally came to a compromise, with Timothy getting 4 champion gold soul crystals and paying Oshus a total of 40 million military credits.
Good, now that we are done, we should move. We must store the gold soul crystals before anyone notices they are missing and start searching for them.
Timothy spoke with a voice full of excitement, as one could expect, since 4 champion God Soul crystals would be more than enough to refine his essence wave to the point he could forcefully push his cultivation into the wave king rank. Oshus showed just as much impatience as the alderman, so both left the room the next second. The old wave king calmly followed the alderman as they walked through the castle that was as large as a small town.
First, we must reach the lower levels of the Azure Castle, and from there we will descend even further.
Timothy guided Oshus to a part of the Azure Castle devoid of people. Find your next read on Freeweb novel. Oshus calmly nodded as he followed the wave champion, seemingly not worried about this one trying something due to the difference in their strength.
By the way, Timothy, I found it very odd not to see any elders present. Is there a problem I am not aware of?
Timothy glanced at Oshus and didn't find anything odd in the question, since usually one would see at least a couple of Apotheosis Realm masters inside the Azure Castle from time to time, but right now there was none in sight.
I don't really know about it, but I heard rumors that there are no Apotheosis Realm masters currently inside the Azure Castle. It seems they all left for some important mission under the order of the Azure King. All of them? What about the safety of the castle?
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 373, Trap I.
All of them? What about the safety of the castle?
Oshus asked with a concerned expression, but Timothy looked at him as if he was spouting rubbish.
What are you worried about? No one is crazy enough to infiltrate the Azure Castle.
Timothy looked away as a flash of disdain appeared in his eyes. The alderman could not believe how someone like Oshus could become a wave king while he was stuck at the wave champion rank. Oshus did not seem to notice the disdain in Timothy and continued walking behind him until they reached an empty room with a statue holding a sword in one hand and a halo behind her back. Just as Oshus was about to ask why Timothy brought them here, the wave champion walked forward, seemingly merging into the statue.
What are you waiting for?
Oshus heard the voice coming from inside the statue, and then he walked forward, also merging into it. A flash of light hindered his vision for a second, and the next thing he saw was a long spiral staircase that led to what seemed to be a dark dungeon.
A dungeon inside the Azure Castle? How is this possible?
Oshus could not help but ask Timothy, who was by his side. There was nothing wrong with a prison inside the Azure State, as it was a place with a population of millions, and there had to be a place to incarcerate people. However, the Azure State's prison was on the periphery of the state, and it was a heavily fortified place with wave kings watching over it 24/7. Since there was already a perfectly functional jail, there was no reason for a second one.
There are certain people that cannot be put in jail, as the reason for their detention is not exactly fair in the eyes of the Empire, so we use this place.
Timothy spoke as if it was nothing special and began to walk down the stairs. While Oshus seemed surprised, he did not delay things and walked behind the wave champion.
So, are you telling me that the unique vault of the Azure Castle is hidden within a clandestine prison? Is there anything wrong with that? This place is impossible to enter or leave without the assistance of a member of the Azure Council. Since it worked well as a clandestine prison for over 1,000 years, we expanded it into a secret vault.
Oshus could not help but nod as he heard the analysis of Timothy. It did not take long for the duo to reach the end of the stairs, and they soon came upon a large metal gate. Timothy waved his hand, sending a signal with his AI chip, triggering the formation in the gate. As the gate began to glow, an azure force field emerged, covering Timothy and Oshus. The alderman showed nothing, but the old Wave King was surprised to feel the force field penetrate his body all the way to his heart.
Relax, the gate's formation is only making sure you are a member of the Azure royal family. If that was not the case, it would not open and would have sent a signal to the guards outside and inside the prison.
Oshus's eyes narrowed as he heard that, and he could feel how the gate's force field probed his bloodline. There was no doubt in his mind that if he were someone else, it would have been discovered. The azure force field covered the duo for a few seconds before the formation shut down, and the massive gate began to open, showing rows after rows of prison cells stacked one over the other. Metal gates covered each cell, and no sound came from them, making it impossible to see how many were occupied. Still, Oshus could feel that at least half of them housed prisoners, meaning that the Azure royal family had incarcerated over 1,000 people. Although it was a shocking piece of information for anyone, Oshus was a man who had committed despicable acts, so wrongfully incarcerating people was not something that should bother him.
The smell and aura of this place are sickening, which is why I never come. Sometimes I wonder what is the point of taking these people captive and why not just kill them.
Timothy spoke with an annoyed expression as he went through the path to the other side of the underground prison. He did not really care about the people in this place either. The duo reached the other side of the prison, and at all times, Oshus felt the presence of the force field. Clearly, the inspection was not just during their entrance, but the entire way through the prison. As they reached the other end, Timothy once again used his AI chip to activate the formation, and the gate opened, revealing a massive empty room with a large hole in the middle that seemed to go down for an immense distance.
We need to go down. It is approximately 10,000 meters until the secret vault.
Timothy spoke in a usual manner, and Oshus showed no suspicion at all as he nodded to the man. Both then jumped into the huge hole and began to calmly descend. There was not even an iota of light in the hole, but that would typically not be a problem for a Wave King. However, for some reason, Oshus's eyes could see nothing beyond 20 meters around him, making it clear that the darkness was not natural. Still, the old Wave King did not worry as he could see Timothy next to him. Discover stories with Freeweb Novel. Everything was in order until, all of a sudden, a massive metal gate appeared above them, sealing the path back to the prison. It was at that point that Timothy made his energy explode, flashing downward. Oshus was confused, and before he could process what was happening, the sound of metal gates opening emerged from the darkness. As one might expect, the old Wave King immediately unleashed his ego wave, and his eyes widened as he saw that there was another metal gate 100 meters beneath him. Timothy had already reached it, and he was not alone since there were 3 other people present. All of them were Wave Kings, and one had reached the middle Wave King rank. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 374, Trap EI. Oshus used his energy to remain in the air as he looked at the people above the metal gate, wrath evident as he focused on Timothy.
What is the meaning of this?
Timothy showed a mocking smile as he heard Oshus's question and did not bother answering. Instead, the Middle Wave King responded.
Are you really so naive as to not understand your position, Oshus? Did you believe that reaching the silent vault with the help of a simple alderman was possible? Timothy never had access to this place, and I opened the gate to the tunnel you just went through.
Oshus focused on the Middle Wave King, fear in his eyes, yet he clenched his teeth and shouted.
Alderman Farius, do you think you can take my belongings without anyone noticing? The elders will punish you for this. HMPH, there are no elders present in the castle, and even if they were, I would simply share a portion of the wealth with them. That is how things work. Timothy knows this, which is why he contacted me while you were negotiating. You, on the other hand, let greed cloud your judgment and want to keep the treasure for yourself.
Continue your journey with Freeweb Novel. Farius' face was expressionless as he and the other 2 Wave Kings ascended, approaching Oshus with coldness in their eyes as their wave cloaked their bodies. Oshus rose further and further until he reached the metal gate above him. The old Wave King could feel the endurance of the metal gate and knew he could not break through it, so there was no way to escape from the trio. Timothy watched everything with a smile on his face as he pushed his essence wave to the limit, activating his armor and enveloping himself in a strong current of revolving water. He would not participate in the fight, but that did not mean the collateral damage would not affect him, so he had to be careful.
Wait, I will hand the treasure over to you and forget about this. There is no need to escalate things. Please, we are all members of the Azure royal family and have the blood of the Azure Emperor running through our veins.
Oshus shouted, but his words seemed to have zero effect on the trio as they surrounded him. The fear in his eyes was evident as his heart beat faster and faster.
Our fight will draw attention, and people will know that you have killed me.
The trio only smiled as they heard Oshus warning. They had already made sure to erase any evidence of the old Wave King's arrival into this place.
Let's end this.
Phaearius shouted as his astral wave exploded, making him incredibly powerful as azure flames covered his body. He, along with the other two, charged toward Oshus, full of killing intent. They activated their armor and burst their waves. Even if Oshus was weak, one could never underestimate a cornered animal. The trio was prepared for an intense fight, but what happened next left them in total shock. Just as they were less than 10 meters from Oshus, his head exploded. Suicide. That thought appeared in the trio's mind, but it immediately faded as they spotted a golden object amidst the burst of blood.
A space ring.
The reason for Oshus' head exploding was the activation of that space ring, and before they could recover from the shock, two masked figures emerged from the ring. One wore a red helmet wielding a red saber, and the other a black helmet with branches emerging from his back. The man in the black helmet extended the branches from his back to cover the ceiling and ground in a fraction of a second, encompassing the entire battlefield into a wood prison, while the man in the red helmet charged toward Phaearius. Despite the shock, Phaearius was a seasoned warrior and made the astral wave on his arm burst as his gauntlets glowed with azure energy, reinforcing them as he struck at the red saber. The other two Wave Kings attacked the man in the red helmet from the sides. The trio did not know what was happening and could sense that the aura of the man in the black helmet was much greater than theirs. Luckily, he seemed focused on preventing anyone from escaping, allowing them to concentrate on the man in the red helmet. Unlike the man in the black helmet, the one in red seemed to have an energy pool that did not surpass the early Wave King realm, so they immediately decided to eliminate this one quickly before working together against the other person. Cain figured out the trio's battle plan immediately, and his only response was to make his ego wave burst as the edge of his blade grew monstrously powerful, summoning the power of the sundering concept. Phaearius fist clashed with the blade, and the strength behind it was immense, protected by a golden wave artifact, so he did not fear being harmed. It was not the first time he had faced a cold weapon, and he was sure he could push it away. However, all confidence shattered as the blade pierced his gauntlets before carrying on through Phaearius' hand, severing his entire right arm. Shock overwhelmed Phaearius, and the same happened with the other two Wave Kings. When the duo saw the wound on their leader, their first thought was not to help, but to do everything in their power to escape. Unfortunately, before they could even move, daggers moving at a shocking speed pierced their lungs. The last time Cain confronted a middle Wave King was less than a year ago. He had to exert his full power just to be on par with the opponent despite the latter's evolution core being wounded. Now, Cain could cripple a middle Wave King in an instant and deal with two early Wave Kings using his secondary weapon at the same time. Cain's eyes were focused, and there was no sign of excitement for his immense burst of strength as he clenched his left fist. Concentrating his astral wave within, he delivered a punch straight to Phaearius' heart with all his might, crippling his opponent's energy pool. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 375, Reaching the Secret Vault, I. Timothy's eyes widened with awe and shock as he saw how two individuals burst their way out of Oshus' head, with the one donning a red helmet managing to cripple three Wave Kings in less than a second. For the old Wave Champion, such might was comparable only to that of an elder of the Azure royal family. The fear in his heart grew so strong that he did not hesitate to use his AI chip to communicate with the outside world. As for how he would explain all this, he did not care. At the moment, his only thought was to survive. Unfortunately for Timothy, there was another jamming signal in place besides the one he had used to hinder Oshus' AI chip, blocking his messages. And if that wasn't enough, branches emerged from the wooden cage and entrapped his body, immobilizing him.
If you try anything, my branches will pierce your body. You will not die, but it will be painful.
Timothy trembled upon hearing those words, seeing the man in the black helmet looking at him with coldness and disdain. Crane loathed those who betrayed their comrades, but while he wanted to kill Timothy and the others, they had to remain alive. Otherwise, Cain would not have aimed at non-vital points and killed the 3 Wave Kings immediately. After Cain took care of the Wave Kings, branches emerged from the wooden cage and entangled them just as they had with Timothy. Phaearius' face was pale, and his body could not stop trembling due to the severe damage he had just sustained. While he knew he was severely wounded and could not escape by force, he understood there was a reason they were kept alive.
What do you want?
Phaearius struggled to regulate his breathing and found it difficult to speak, but he managed to gather the strength needed to ask that question. Cain's gaze was as cold as ever as he looked at the 3 Wave Kings, but his eyes turned toward Timothy, making the latter tremble with terror.
I know nothing. Phaearius and the others forced me to trap Oshus.
Cain hadn't even spoken, but the old Wave Champion was already spouting excuses, making him shake his head. It was clear that Timothy would say anything to survive, which meant he could not trust anything this one said. Cain took a deep breath before making his ego wave burst with power, invading Timothy's mind and hypnotizing him. Phaearius and the other Wave Kings were shocked to see how easily the man in the red helmet could hypnotize Timothy in the blink of an eye.
Who among these 3 has the lowest authorization and would know the least about the secret and shady dealings of the Azure royal family?
As soon as Cain posed that question, Timothy turned to one of the early Wave Kings and pointed at him with his finger.
That would be him. His name is Zalan, and while he is strong, he has repeatedly proven to the elders that he cannot be trusted with important tasks.
Zalan's face contorted with rage upon hearing Timothy's words. Although he understood that the old man was under the control of the red-helmeted monster, he would have still attacked if not for the paralysis. Cain turned to Zalan before asking a second question.
What types of crimes has Zalan committed?
As before, Timothy answered Cain immediately.
Like Oshus, Zalan has a fascination with children. There are over 12 charges of R. Enough.
Stay connected with Freeweb Novel. Cain cut Timothy off, already knowing what this one was about to reveal. The coldness in Cain's eyes began to fade, but the emotionless light left behind only made the 3 Wave Kings of the Azure royal family even more fearful.
Black.
Crane, hearing his codename, immediately released the branches from Zalan. The early Wave King could not even take a breath before Cain appeared in front of him, grabbing him by the throat. Zalan was terrified and severely wounded, with holes all over his body, but he was still an astral Wave King. Like a frenzied beast, he began to strike at Cain with all the strength he could muster, but it was futile. Cain's body was as hard as a golden wave artifact, and without the enhancement of astral wave, Zalan's punches could not even leave a bruise. Cain's eyes remained emotionless as the ego wave within them burst, manipulating all 33 blood nails simultaneously.
Oh,
A scream of unbearable pain came from Zalan as the blood nails gouged out his eyes, but that was just the beginning as the agony grew even as the daggers began to flay his skin. In less than 30 seconds, there was not a single piece of Zalan's body left with skin, and he had become a bloody horror. Phaearius and the other Wave King witnessed it all, and the terror in their hearts nearly made them wet themselves. The worst part was not the pain, but the fact that Zalan was still alive. The man could not scream since his tongue was also removed, but he did not stop trembling in pain, presenting the duo with a vivid image of the agony he was enduring.
Timothy, is it correct to say that Phaearius is the one with the highest clearance and knowledge among the people present?
The world rewards strength, so it would make sense that Phaearius would be the one with the most extensive background and knowledge. Of course, other factors could be at play, so Cain asked for confirmation.
Yes.
The old wave champion immediately confirmed Kane's hypothesis. Kane turned to Phaearius for a moment, but did not linger on this one for long as his eyes turned to the other wave king.
Black is.
Just like with Zalan, as soon as Kane gave the command, the branches released the early wave king. Thea was nothing but absolute terror in the wave king as he saw the branches releasing him, to the point that he was not even able to make a move as Kane grabbed him by the neck. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 376, Reaching the Secret Vault, Air. Kane's ego wave invaded the Wave King, and the fear within this one was so immense that he could put the man into hypnosis without a problem. It was only then that he turned toward Phaearius, using his ego wave to monitor the man's heart rate and brainwaves. While the most effective path would have been to hypnotize Phaearius as well, Kane was not confident in his ability to forcefully compel a middle wave king, and he could not afford to suffer a backlash. Instead of hypnotizing Phaearius, Kane planned to monitor this one's vitals to detect any lies, and would use Timothy and the early wave king to fill in the blanks.
Answer my question honestly and thoroughly, or else you will end up like him.
Phaearius knew he needed to maintain a strong front if he wanted to survive, but the fear was too much. The idea of lying faded from his mind when he saw the other two being hypnotized, since they might uncover his farce.
Is this the real secret vault of the Azure royal family? Yes, this is the vault the elders and even the king used to collect their shady belongings.
Kane was able to relax, knowing they were in the right place. After all, Timothy might have lied from the beginning, and this place was solely a secret prison and nothing more. Most likely, the reason why Timothy brought Oshus here, despite intending to kill this one from the beginning, was because they could take care of him without drawing attention from the outside.
Are there any more people beyond the metal gate? Will they be alerted of our arrival?
Phaearius immediately shook his head, but Kane's eyes began to lose their light, becoming emotionless to the point that it terrified the middle wave king.
I am telling the truth. There is an Apotheosis realm battle puppet, but only an elder can activate it, so unless they are alerted, it will not act.
Your journey continues on Freeweb Novel. Kane's eyes narrowed, and he glanced at the early wave king, who subtly nodded. That was excellent news, since even if he and Crane, working together, could face an Apotheosis realm master, it would take all their strength and might alert people.
Open the gate and let us enter the secret vault.
Shortly after Kane uttered those words, Phaearius felt the jamming signal disappear, allowing him to use his AI chip to command the metal gates. The first thought that crossed his mind was to contact the outside world so the Azure royal family's elders could come to rescue them, but the fear in his heart was too much, and he ended up just following Kane's command. Kane saw the metal gates split above and beneath them, allowing them to carry on to the secret vault as well as the path back to the surface. He was not worried about Phaearius trying to communicate with the outside world, since he could have easily intercepted those signals. Before marching down, Kane used his ego wave to knock out the bloody Zalan and sent this one into his space ring. Phaearius saw that, and a glimmer of hope appeared in his heart. Since the man in the red helmet did not kill Zalan, there might be a way out. Crane disassembled the wooden cage, but maintained the branches that held Phaearius in place. Kane went down with Timothy and the early wave king by his side, while Crane brought Phaearius with him. It did not take long for the five to reach the other end of the hole, and what they saw was a massive black metallic room with 12 small metal pillars emerging from the ground. In the back, there was a 5-meter-tall humanoid entity with 12 eyes and 6 arms. Solemn expressions appeared in Kane and Crane as they saw it, since it was formidable. Luckily for the duo, it was inactive. There was no wealth or anything of the sort visible to the eye in the metallic room other than the 12 small metal pillars. However, Kane was not surprised, since it would not make sense for a sea of cultivation treasures to just be lying around. Kane's eyes focused on the pillars, and as he expected, each contained a pocket dimension capable of holding life inside.
These are the special space treasures, where each Azure Elder stored their questionable belongings, right?
Phaearius immediately nodded.
Which one is used by the Azure King?
Phaerius froze as he heard that question. If the belongings of an elder were to be stolen, he would be in serious trouble, but if those belonging to the king vanished, then there was no way he would survive. However, as soon as Cain turned to him, the fear in the middle wave king overcame his rational mind, and he immediately pointed to one black pillar on the far left. It did not seem any different than the others, which made sense after all. Why would the Azure King want his pillar drawing more attention than needed?
I cannot open them, only the owners can. I swear I am telling the truth.
Phaerius shouted as he was terrified that Cain would demand he open access to the storage dimension inside the pillar. Luckily for Phaerius, Cain never expected this one to open the storage dimension. After all, it would not make sense for a god to have access to all of them. Cain walked to the storage dimension of the Azure King and placed his hand over it. He did not attempt to use his ego wave to invade the artifact, since he was sure that he would not be able to do so. Cain's ego wave was formidable, especially for someone so young, but the defenses of this place surely must be able to hold off the ego wave of someone at the second realm of the ego eternal path of power. Fortunately, Cain had access to another type of force field. It could not cover as much distance as his ego wave or have control of the environment and his body, but when it came to scanning, it was an entire level ahead. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 377, Connecting the Dots. Apex, can you silently access this pillar using the AI chip module? Cain immediately heard the voice of the system's spirit in his mind.
I can try by enhancing the hacking and scan force field, tools and fusing them, but I will have to consume your destiny force to do it. Go ahead.
While Cain understood the importance of his destiny force, he had amassed an immense amount, more than enough to evolve the modules when needed, so he did not hesitate to use them now. Read exclusive adventures at Freeweb Novel. Apex immediately went ahead, enhancing the AI chip module with destiny force before attempting to hack the storage dimension. Crane glanced at Cain as he put his hand on the pillar. He knew accessing the storage dimension should be impossible, since the security of this place should be too much for even Apotheosis Realm masters. Still, Cain had a way of making the impossible possible. In any case, Crane remained silent, watching over Phaerius. He just had to follow Cain's commands, and everything would be fine. Cain calmly waited for over 5 minutes until he heard Apex's voice in his mind.
There is good news and bad news. I can use the AI chip module to force your way into the storage dimension, but that would take time and alert the person in control.
Cain frowned upon hearing that. If the Azure King were to realize his presence, that man would march into this vault and kill him, so while he wanted access to the storage dimension, it seemed he could not do it now.
By the way, during the scan, I detected strong spatial fluctuations inside the storage dimension, matching those of a teleportation formation.
Cain's eyes widened at Apex's words, and he couldn't help but smile. He had come here in the first place for the intercontinental teleportation formation, and it seemed that, just like he expected, it was stored in the secret vault of the Azure royal family. I can relay this information to the 4th Imperial Prince. It will be enough to conduct thorough research on the Azure royal family. Cain silently nodded to himself as he managed to complete one of his targets, but there was something even more important, at least for him: the whereabouts of the missing people. Fortunately, he had individuals of very high rank in the Azure royal family under his control right now. He removed his hand from the dark pillar and walked toward Phaerius. Time had done little to calm the fear in the middle wave king's heart, and he was even more afraid now, imagining that Cain would be furious at not being able to access the storage dimension.
Do you have any information about the sudden disappearance of millions around the sector? 100,000 recently vanished for the Azure state alone, yet not only did the Azure royal family not report it, they attempted to cover it up.
Phaerius was confused by the question since he did not understand what was happening. The fact that the 2 men with helmets invaded the secret vault made sense if they wanted to steal, but now the one in red was asking about people disappearing. His first instinct was to lie, but he couldn't help but glance at the hypnotized Wave King by his side. Cain immediately noticed that, and instead of continuing to question Farius, he turned to the other man since it seemed that this one was involved.
Speak.
As one might expect from a hypnotized man, the early Wave King immediately answered Cain's question.
Over the last 3 years, I have been part of a group tasked to kidnap people all over the Prometheus sector. We have done it proportionally across each of the 81 states in order not to call attention to our domains, but in the last few months, the Azure Council commanded us to focus solely on the Azure state.
Cain and Crane's eyes widened as they heard that. The Azure royal family was not just involved in the disappearances, they were the main perpetrators of the act, being solely responsible.
Why? I don't know. We just had to kidnap children from slums, orphanages, and the like, people whose disappearance would have the least impact on society. We took out entire families for the purpose of concealment.
Cain's fists clenched as he heard that. He had already hypothesized that the targets were children.
What did you do with them? Wait, I can explain.
Farius, who had remained silent, shouted as he heard Cain make that question, the fear evident in his eyes. The Wave King remembered the fate of Zalan upon Cain, finding out about the man's perversions, and knew that the answer to that question would be dire. Unfortunately for Farius, before he could say anything further, the branches paralyzing his body also closed his mouth, and then the hypnotized Wave King answered.
The children were handed over to one of the elders. The adults were only taken so no one would inquire about the children, so we disposed of all of them.
Cain and Crane were shocked upon hearing that. Not only were the children taken, but the people of the Azure royal family had also killed millions of men and women. Once again, Cain's eyes grew devoid of emotion, the default state when his heart was so full of killing intent and rage that he could hardly control them. He took a deep breath as he asked another question.
What can you tell me about the elder? His name is Gorius Azure, head of the Azure Department of Research and Investigation. He is a 4-star Saint genetic coder.
Cain's eyes widened as he heard those words. He remembered the unique formulas that Salam and Azure used during the genetic tournament and the events in Sahara City. Azure Royal Family, the organization, kidnapping hundreds of thousands of children, genetic experiments. His mind began to connect the dots, and he could not help but tremble as he realized what must have happened to all those children. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 378, Alarm. All the pieces were arranged in Cain's mind as he realized the true purpose of the Intercontinental Teleportation Formation. Secretly holding Intercontinental Teleportation Formation was a grave crime, and it did not make much sense for the Azure royal family to risk it. While moving through continents was hard, a divine ascension cultivator could do it with enough effort and safety, not to mention that due to their status, the Azure royal family could ask to use the ones in control by the Imperial Court. Therefore, it did not make sense for the Azure royal family to possess an intercontinental teleportation formation just to reach another continent. Still, things changed if the goal of the formation was not just to go to another continent, but to escape from the wrath of the Imperial Court. If you have enough power, there were many crimes the Imperial Court would be willing to turn a blind eye to, but working for the organization was something they could never forget. Cain took a deep breath as he processed all that information and realized how deep the connection between the Azure royal family and the organization was. Even for him, it was hard to calm down when he understood that the organization was the puppeteer of the bloodline of a former emperor of the Godslayer humankind. The red light in his eyes burned with incredible might as he regained control of his emotions. Exposing the Azure royal family was important, but there was something even more crucial. Cain's eyes glowed with determination as he glanced at Farius.
If you can tell me the exact location where Elder Gorius took the children, I will let you live.
Farius' eyes glimmered with hope as he heard those words, and he immediately began to nod. If it weren't for the branch covering his mouth, he would have already started shouting. Kane only stared at the middle wave king briefly before his eyes grew emotionless, while the red light in them burst with killing intent.
Your heart squeezed when I asked that question, which led me to believe you don't know.
Farius' eyes widened as he heard that, and he attempted to speak with all his might, trying to convince Kane otherwise, but the young man was not in the mood to listen to him. Before he could do anything, the branches pierced into his body, making him tremble in pain while at the same time injecting a powerful drug that left him unconscious. Crane retracted the branches as Kane sent Farius to the same space ring that held the bloody Zalan. There was nothing but killing intent in Kane's heart for these people, but he could not do it right now. After all, the death of a god would not go unnoticed, especially in a place like this. Kane controlled one of the daggers to make an incision in Timothy's head, as he intended to leave this place in the same way he came, inside the brain of a member of the Azure royal family. Timothy did nothing to resist as he had already lost control of his body and mind, and the only train of thought he had was to obey Kane's command. Once the incision was done, Kane turned to the hypnotized early Wave King, and his eyes burst with red light.
In 30 minutes, blow your head off.
It was impossible to erase the fact that he and Crane came to this place, so the best path was to erase any evidence of their presence, and that meant killing everybody who saw them. Kane was not a ruthless murderer, but when it came to the Azure royal family, a force capable of killing millions of humans and kidnapping children for experimenting, he had no reservations about them. The early Wave King did not make a gesture and remained silent, as there was nothing he could do other than obey the command given. He would die, and the one who commanded it did not even bother to learn his name. That was a truly pitiful death. Kane and Crane entered the space ring, which silently pierced into Timothy's brain before a burst of golden flame closed the wound. The gates to the exterior were open, so the alderman had no problem leaving the secret vault. Experience Mottales on Freeweb Novel. Kane's ego wave allowed him to see what Timothy did, and as they passed through the clandestine prison, an annoyed expression appeared on his face. He wanted to save those people but lacked the authority to open the gates, and there was no way he could force his way through. In the end, Kane could only sigh and had to admit that his strength was simply not enough. He would report everything to the 4th Imperial Prince and attempt to breach this place as fast as possible, but there was a good chance that these prisoners would be either mobilized or killed once the Azure royal family learned there was a break-in. Timothy was able to exit the prison, and the Azure force field detected nothing. It was powerful, but not enough to perceive the presence of people inside a space ring in the brain of someone. Once the alderman exited the prison, he flew up the stairs and reached the dungeon's exit quickly. Timothy had initially walked to give Farius and the others time to lay the trap for Oshus. The alderman reached the dungeon's exit and activated the matrix, emerging from the statue in the empty room back in the Azure Castle. Kane could not help but sigh as he saw they finally left that place. There is still danger since I am sure the Azure Castle is monitored, but even if something goes wrong now, we should be able to escape without much problem. Kane was not a fan of fairy tales since he found them so predictable, which was why he did not detect the irony in the fact that as soon as that thought crossed his mind, an alarm went off in the Azure Castle. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 379, Existential Threat to the Azure State. The alarm went off, and it echoed across the entire Azure Castle. Timothy showed nothing since Kane controlled his every action, but the young man and Crane inside the space ring looked at each other with shock and dread. Kane and Crane did not understand what was happening. They had been very careful, making sure to cover their presence. However, even if they were discovered, why wait until they left the dungeon? It would have made much more sense to attack them while they were inside the dungeon, since it would have been easier to get rid of the evidence.
Rumbled.
Before the duo could understand what was happening, they felt the ground beneath their feet trembling, and through Timothy's AI chip, they heard a message. All people at the Wave Champion and Wave Warrior ranks must evacuate into the Azure Castle. Cultivators at the Wave King level must form a defensive formation around the perimeters. This is a command from the Azure Royal Council. Cain frowned as he heard that command, and it became clear that the alarm was not related to him, Crane, or the events in the dungeons and secret vault. It was related to the tremor that kept growing stronger. Timothy was a Wave champion, so he should have waited inside the Azure Castle, but Cain needed to know what was happening. No matter how he felt about the Azure royal family, they were powerful, so something that would force them to evacuate must be extremely dangerous.
Boom.
As soon as Timothy emerged from the Azure Cast, he heard a powerful explosion in the distance. The alderman turned to the origin, and what he saw left Cain and Crane shocked. The alderman saw what could only be described as a sphere of dark golden energy the size of a mountain. Explore stories on Freeweb novel. It was located on the periphery of the Azure State, near the northwest.
Boom.
Another explosion emerged from the sphere of dark golden revolving energy.
Boom.
The explosion seemed to have a pattern, as the sphere would shirk before unleashing a powerful blast, growing larger and stronger the next second.
BOOMMMs.
It happened again and again, and the blasts were too much for the outer walls of the Azure State as cracks had already formed in them. If left unchecked, the walls will fall, allowing the energy blast to reach the population, and hundreds of thousands will die. Cain could discern the power of the revolving sphere of dark golden energy and knew it was an existential threat to the entire Azure State. They needed to act fast, or else it would result in countless deaths, but as he looked around him, it was clear that the Wave Kings of the Azure royal family would not risk their lives. The energy level of the sphere was beyond that of a Wave King, and the blast at the epicenter carried more than enough power to endanger their lives. Cain knew that none of the Wave Kings would risk their lives for the common people of the Azure State. Apotheosis' realm masters were the only ones who could intervene in such a powerful phenomenon safely, but for some reason, all of them were gone. Whatever those Apotheosis realm masters were doing, Cain doubted they would suddenly return to the state to save the commoners. They might appear once the Azure Castle was in danger, but by then, millions would have perished. Damn it! Cain shouted in his mind as he commanded Timothy to leave the Azure Castle and march toward the sphere of dark golden energy. The old alderman did as he was told, using all his strength to rise into the sky as he flashed out of the Azure Castle at full speed.
Alderman Timothy, what are you doing?
The Wave Kings guarding the periphery of the castle shouted as they saw the old Wave champion marching toward the sphere of energy. None was willing to risk their lives by going near the sphere of energy, so they just watched as this one vanished in the distance. If the old man wanted to kill himself, they would not join him. Timothy, of course, did not care about those Wave Kings as he was under the control of Cain. As soon as he moved far enough away from the sight of the people of the Azure royal family, he entered a small alley where his head exploded into pieces, allowing Cain and Crane to emerge. The duo donned their helmets to cover their identities as they nodded to each other and silently made their way to the city's walls, getting near the roiling sphere of dark golden energy.
Help.
Save Emmy.
Screams of pain, fear, and desperation surrounded the duo as the energy blasts emerging from the phenomenon were about to break through the walls, killing the people in the zone.
BOMMMM.
The sphere of energy compressed again before unleashing another blast, growing stronger, and finally breaking apart a piece of the wall on the periphery of the Azure State. Terror, absolute and overwhelming, appeared in the eyes of the people watching, for without the wall, the next energy blast would reach them directly, and none would survive. A young woman looked at the sphere of dark golden energy as she held her daughter in her arms. When she saw the sphere compressing again, she knew that the next blast would be the end for them, and tears fell from her eyes as she hugged her child.
BOMMMM. Another energy blast emerged, but just as this one was about to reach the population, giant trees emerged from the ground, sealing the hole in the wall and saving the people from the blast. Shock and awe appeared in the eyes of those who were ready to face death just a moment ago as a man with a black helmet created a wall made of giant trees that saved all of them. And their awe only grew mightier as another man with a red helmet, bathed in golden fire and wielding a red saber in his hand, dashed toward the sphere. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 380, Impossible Choice I. There is a dense amount of energy in a chaotic state. However, the core of the sphere seems to be hollow, and it is where the energy source of the phenomenon is located. Kane's eyes were full of resolution as he focused on the core of the phenomenon after the Absolute Life Form System's report. As long as he destroyed it, the phenomenon would disperse, and everybody would live. It was extremely dangerous, but if Kane did nothing, millions would die, so he did not have a choice. Kane's blood wing flapped at a shocking speed as he pushed himself to the limit, triggering third gear. His velocity was beyond impressive, but there was a significant problem. The sphere of energy was generating a strong gravitational field and emitting powerful radiation. Resisting the gravitational field took every ounce of Kane's strength, and he could feel the radiation burning his skin and muscles. If not for the radiance of life overcoming the damage, just getting near would have been deadly.
Boom.
Kane had not even reached the edge of the sphere of dark golden energy when it shrunk and unleashed a new energy blast, sending him flying away and crashing against the tree wall formed by Crane.
Coffee.
Kane couldn't help but cough up blood as enduring the power of the energy blast was too much, even for someone like him with a body as resilient as a golden wave artifact. The rate of the energy blasts increased, and Kane had not even regained control over his body when a new one emerged.
Boom.
Kane's eyes widened as he saw the energy blast was about to reach him. Luckily, a wooden cocoon formed above his body, protecting him. Crane had acted just in time to save Kane from the energy blast, but he couldn't help but clench his teeth as the next one nearly shattered his tree wall, and he was forced to use all his energy to enhance the defense.
My lord, I will not be able to stop the blast for long.
Kane heard Crane's voice in his mind as he caught his breath. The energy blasts were too strong, but that was not even the main problem. Now that he could perceive the phenomenon's power better, Kane knew he lacked the strength to reach its core by force.
Boom.
Another blast emerged from the dark golden sphere, almost blowing the tree walls to pieces, pushing Kane's mind to the limit, as it was just a matter of time before Crane could no longer hold, and hundreds of thousands perished.
My lord.
Once again, Kane heard Crane's voice in his mind and understood just how dire the situation was. The red light in his eyes grew stronger as he took a deep breath and unleashed his ego wave, enveloping the exterior of the phenomenon with it. Kane's mind relaxed as he activated the flow. His senses would not be enough to find a way in, but he hoped that the unique technique that allowed him to perceive the vibrations and patterns of all things would help him. The sphere shrank again before unleashing another blast, this time so powerful that it nearly sent the tree wall flying away. Crane shouted as he made his essence wave burst with more and more power, using all he had to keep the tree wall in place. His body trembled due to the immense pressure he was enduring, and he knew he wouldn't last long. Luckily for the middle-aged man and everyone else in the Azure state, Kane's eyes opened as there was a decisive light in them. Using the flow, he found a way into the sphere of dark golden energy. Right after a blast, in which it releases its chaotic energy, its structure grows unstable before growing larger again. It is less than a fraction of a second, but I could reach its core and destroy its origin. Explore stories on Freeweb Novel. Kane adopted a sprint position inside the tree wall and took a deep breath as his heartbeat grew stronger, entering third gear and pushing it with even greater strength as his astral wave and blood energy focused on his legs.
Crane, when I give the signal, open the cocoon.
Crane didn't know what Kane's plan was, but he trusted the young man and nodded as he once again made his essence wave explode with power, reinforcing the tree wall and ready to open the wooden cocoon as soon as Kane gave the command. The sphere of revolving dark golden energy once again shrank before unleashing an even more potent blast in all directions.
Boom. Now.
The blast had just reached the tree wall when Crane heard the command, and he immediately opened the wooden cocoon.
Boom.
Another burst echoed, making the tree wall tremble, but this was not due to the sphere of dark golden energy, but the young man that blasted forward with so much speed that he was invisible even to a wave king. Kane's eyes were full of determination as he pierced through the energy shell of the revolving sphere, and just as the absolute life form system told him, the car of the phenomenon was safe. It was like the eye of a hurricane. Everything around was being obliterated, but this place was safe. Kane did not have time to relax as the sphere would not take long to destroy the Azure state, so he had to act fast and immediately took out Slaughter. Kane's eyes glowed with a powerful red light full of determination as he looked for his target. However, his entire body trembled with shock and horror once he saw the phenomenon's origin.
Sobe sobe.
A child's cry echoed inside the car of the revolving sphere of energy less than 5 meters away from Kane. The little boy was in a fetal position, crying, and it was not hard to see the genetic damage, as over half of his body was badly mutated, with tumors all over him. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.